25, before China had even entered its official flood season in July, disaster was already sweeping across the nation. From the smoky industrial belts of the north to the farmlands of the south, unrelenting rains merged with swollen rivers, turning what should have been routine monsoon challenges into a nationwide nightmare. The waters didn't burst in a single wave. They crept forward day after day, tightening their grip until whole provinces were drowning. By July 4th, Chinese officials admitted that 329 rivers had surged past the danger line. But behind this statistic lies a far darker truth. This crisis is not simply nature's wrath. It's the result of human arrogance. And at the very heart of it stands the most controversial symbol of modern China, the Three Gorges Dam. Once glorified as the Communist Party's ultimate triumph of engineering, the dam is now seen as its Achilles heel. When it was inaugurated in 2003, state media boasted that it could withstand a once-in-a-thousand-year flood. Later, that promise was quietly downgraded to once-in-a-century. Now, as red alerts blare across central China, even that watered-down claim sounds like a cruel joke. The cracks in the illusion, both metaphorical and real, are widening. To ease the strain, authorities unleashed up to 11 floodgates, dumping 44,000 cubic meters of water every second, an amount that could submerge Hangzhou's West Lake countless times. Officials framed it as a necessary move. Locals called it what it truly was: state-orchestrated flooding. In reality, Beijing chose to shield upstream industrial hubs and sacrifice downstream villages. Politics won, ordinary people lost everything. Dr. Wang Weilu, a hydraulic engineer once tied to the project, has long blown the whistle. According to him, flood control was never the dam's true purpose. It was a business scheme, hydropower profits for elites on China's east coast. Experts recommended lowering reservoir levels before monsoon rains. Instead, the reservoir was filled to the brim, wiping away its safety margin. When the downpours arrived, panic followed, and the floodgates were forced open. Wang calls this a gray rhino, a disaster that everyone sees but leaders refuse to face. And the problem doesn't end with one mega dam. China hosts nearly 100,000 reservoirs, many built decades ago, now decaying and unstable. Sudden midnight discharges have become routine, erasing villages under cover of darkness, with no accountability. And still, the propaganda machine can't hide everything. The dam itself is showing alarming signs of stress. Beijing concedes there have been minor shifts. Independent researchers suggest far worse: cracks under pressure, growing seismic risks, and rising instability. Earthquakes in areas surrounding the dam have multiplied more than 30-fold since the reservoir was filled. Even NASA pointed out a chilling fact: the dam's immense weight has actually slowed Earth's rotation. This is more than flawed engineering. It is a tragedy carved into concrete. To make way for the project, 1.3 million people were forced from their homes, the largest relocation ever caused by a single construction. 13 cities, 140 towns, and 300 villages vanished underwater. Priceless heritage sites were lost forever. While displaced families sank into poverty, the real gains flowed to coastal giants like Shanghai. China's dam history makes the danger even starker. In 1975, the Banqiao Dam collapse, kept secret for years, claimed an estimated 230,000 lives. The wounds still haunt survivors. Now experts warn, if the Three Gorges Dam falters, through poor management, or collapse, or an unstoppable storm, the result will not only be catastrophic flooding, it could also deliver a mortal blow to the Communist Party's grip on power itself. Michael Oslin of the Hoover Institution didn't mince words. If the Three Gorges Dam fails, it could shatter the regime itself. For decades, the Chinese Communist Party wrapped its image of control and modern progress around this single structure. But if it cracks, physically or symbolically, it could trigger a domino effect of chaos that nothing can stop. Warning lights are already flashing. On June 29th, the Sichuan Basin was hammered by torrential downpours. By late evening, the Zaipingpu Reservoir outside Chengdu began spilling water to relieve the pressure. Within days, the provincial capital was sinking beneath rising floods. By July 3rd, entire districts were submerged. The disaster clock isn't slowing down, it's speeding up. As the Yangtze River swells, it's not just testing the strength of concrete, It's testing the survival of a political empire that promised stability above all else. The Three Gorges Dam was built as mankind's victory over nature. Today it stands exposed as the CCP's weakest point. The question is no longer if this system will crack. The only question left is when and what destruction will follow in its wake. China underwater. Silence from Beijing as the dam reaches breaking point. Throughout June and July 2025, wave after wave of extreme weather smashed China, leaving devastation from one end of the country to the other. In Rongjiang County, Guizhou, families barely recovered from a flood on June 24th before another disaster struck on June 28th. Emergency workers rushed in, but locals said it was the worst flooding they had endured in 30 years. In Hubei, catastrophe came at night. Between June 30 and July 1st, a flash flood swallowed Xianfeng County in minutes. Whole neighborhoods disappeared underwater before people could escape. In Henan's Taiping town on July 3rd, a river suddenly rose and engulfed a highway in less than 3 minutes. In Hunan, the nightmare began as early as June 18th, tearing through towns like Badagongshan and Longshan. More than 400,000 were affected and nearly 100,000 forced to evacuate. Then, on July 12th, Hangzhou's iconic West Lake saw one of the heaviest downpours in modern memory. But the most chilling moment came on July 15th. At 2 a.m., a deadly cloudburst struck Jinzhou village in Lijiang. And behind closed doors, officials quietly ordered reservoirs to discharge water, not to save lives, but to sacrifice less important areas for the sake of key cities. The truth surfaced after a cold announcement from Xinhua on June 27th. The state would deliberately divert floodwaters into designated sacrifice zones. Not long after, the Tuokou hydropower plant flung open 7 gates at once. The Yuan River roared straight into Rongjiang County. No siren, no alert, no time to prepare. Videos flooding Chinese social media confirmed the worst suspicion. This was not a natural disaster. It was state-engineered destruction, and the nightmare escalated. On June 30th at 6 p.m., massive surges from the Min and Jinsha rivers combined and rushed toward Yibin City in Sichuan. By July 2nd, the Three Gorges Reservoir had risen to 152.87 meters, 7 meters above its official danger line. Water was pouring in at 30,000 cubic meters per second, while only 20,400 were being released. The level was rising too fast, far beyond safe margins. By July 7th, the water had climbed past the 171-meter red line and was nearing the structural ceiling of 175 meters. That's when panic struck Beijing. At 6:37 p.m. and on July 7th, GPI News dropped the bombshell. China's top leadership was in full-blown crisis mode. Multiple emergency meetings were held inside Zhongnanhai. Their decision? Prevent the dam's failure at all costs. A nationwide red alert was issued. The military, engineering corps, and armed police were deployed. The Southern Theater Command was ordered to high alert. Troops were positioned around the dam, bracing for the worst. Engineers began emergency discharges, which one expert described as controlled destruction, choosing how to collapse instead of waiting for it to happen. But every ton of water unleashed meant another city downstream was doomed. Yichang, Wuhan, Nanjing, all were forced into emergency response. The state had made its choice: protect the dam, even if it meant drowning its own people. As the waters kept rising, Beijing gave the people little more than silence. At a rare state council briefing, Deputy Water Resources Minister Chen Min admitted the scale of the crisis. 329 rivers across China had burst past warning levels. But beyond that single admission, the nation's top leaders vanished from sight, leaving the public to face disaster alone. One of the most chilling examples came in Shanfeng County, Enshi City, Hubei Province. Floods tore through the area in the dead of night, without a single warning. By the time officials issued a red alert at 6 a.m., the devastation had already struck. Within just 12 hours, the county was buried under 342 millimeters of rainfall, obliterating every record in history. Yet, when the storm ended, the government's first move wasn't rescue. It was censorship. Authorities claimed that 18,000 residents had been evacuated safely and insisted that there were no deaths. But witnesses told another story. A man surnamed Huang reported that at least 2 people had perished inside the romantic castle apartment complex. Several more were critically injured. The real death toll? hidden, just like the truth. For millions across China, the disaster is no longer just about rising rivers and collapsing homes. It is about betrayal. Every floodgate opened upstream, every fact erased from the news, leaves one haunting question in the minds of ordinary citizens. When survival itself is sacrificed for politics, who will protect the people?